What is the most shocking or disturbing or beneficial or positive thing you have learned about the world we live in currently through mushrooms trips? So anything that is disturbing, shocking, or beneficial and positive. So
that's a lot of stuff. So
yeah, sorry. You can start with disturbing. What is the most disturbing thing you have learned about the world we live in currently through mushrooms?
all right, because we've been on the topic, one of, I won't say it's disturbing, but challenging things and something to accept is that maybe the powers that be, who we think, like I said, who's presented to us as our oppressors, are not our oppressors.
Are not.
Are not.
Are not.
You know, growing up
Wow.
thinking that's the enemy over there.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily the enemy. They're just playing a role
Yeah.
that needs to be played out. You know, and coming to terms with that. That's been part of the load I've been able to drop as well. Just identifying where the true enemy is, and then that true enemy was within. So it became a bit more disturbing. And as I said, I don't need to penny what's going out there as much as far as the harm that they can do to me personally. It's like what the harm that you do to yourself, bro, is more you know, detrimental to you, and being responsible for that was the disturbing, you know, just like I've been finding excuses, making excuses. That's some of the disturbing, challenging things, you know. As many fingers as I've pointed at my life, as I said, I've had them pointing back at me. That's what the mushrooms have done,
And what about the most beneficial or positive thing that you learned?
Yeah, and it's just the flip side of that. Like I said earlier on, the fact that it can show me the man in the mirror, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I get to see that, okay, so, you know, who I think is the enemy, who I point fingers at, who I blame, you know, they're not responsible, I'm responsible. I've allowed that to take place, and what I do can determine what happens in the future and what I allow to happen. And it's taking responsibility for that. So initially it can be challenging and disturbing, but if you apply it and work with it and, you know, and honest with yourself, it becomes a reward. It becomes something that you can turn into, like, okay, now I'm going to be responsible for my shit, basically. I'm going to take charge.
You actually sound like you've just explained or used what came into my head when you was just saying that is the process of childbirth. So when you're in labor, those contractions, I tell you, when they come, they are excruciating, but you have to actually work with that pain in order to allow the baby to come through. And then what is the responsibility? What is the reward? The baby at the end. But when you're going through it, OMG, it's not easy. But you know, and you find within your body that it's actually easier to push as the contractions are coming, because you're already tensing up because of the pain. So it helps with that transition, isn't it? So
that's knowledge yourself. You have to go through the experience. You need to have direct experience to start realizing what the experience is, to then know how to navigate it. And that birthing process is no different from what I'm sharing with you now, because it's about being reborn. That's what what's the Christian group that do the being born again?
Oh, okay,
you know?
yeah.
So it's symbolic. There's the actual physical birth of a child, but that's the whole mythology of Jesus, you know, the death and resurrection, going through the underworld, going through the pain, going through the dark, going into the shadow to come out to get the light. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's what the mushroom ultimately, in my opinion, is about. You know, it gives you the ability to come face to face with your dark side, your shadow, with death, you know, with those things that then allow you to become more confident, comfortable in those areas, because if you know, it brings you, and in some cases forces you to face those things, or then you start having, you know, anxieties and, you know, bad trips, as some people coin it, and those things, because you're not dealing with it. But no different from if the mother's giving birth and trying to give birth to a child,
Yeah.
she's got to go with it. If you start, going, trying to close your legs,
Mm.
Going against the
Yeah,
way it is,
yeah.
or maybe let's even look at the way they are, birthing children. The fact that a woman is laying down when she's birthing,
Yeah.
and the gateway is facing upwards.
Yeah.
Where in essence, what you're doing in that case is going against nature. You're going against gravity. The baby
Yeah.
actually wants to come out through the gateway
Yeah.
and download like the
Yeah.
lift onto planet Earth. And that's when you find in loads of old indigenous cultures the pregnancy, birthing process and all of that is slightly different, than what we've been given. So yeah, look, they swap. Just like when we're meant to do our number twos, we're meant to swap when we do them. Like this is beneficial to the body and the organs and just working with nature rather than against it. So yeah, that's like the challenge that you need to go through, but the rewards are great. And if you go against the grain, it can be more challenging. So it's, bringing it back to the birthing process, like you said, of an actual child. I'm not going to ever have the experience of having a child, but what I do know is that women who go either or and start having water births and, doing alternatives, they say it's easy, and then they have more children, they're the ones who can give testimony. So maybe speak to them and find out that when you had a child and your legs were up, when you had it in the hospital, but then you went and had a squatting birth or a water birth, how different, how, less challenging was it? And it's for them to say, not for me, but ultimately you come out the other end and you feel good for it. That's
Definitely.
what that's what the reward is. So that's what mushrooms allow me to do. Allow me to look at that from the mushroom experience, but as to coming back down onto earth and what you got to deal with. That you got to go through challenges, but many times at the end it's great, and there's a learning process nonetheless.
Okay, thank you.